You're watching NBA Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Chase Sr. Be sure to give me a follow on Twitter if you want to talk some basketball, at Chase_Sr. It's also the same handle on Instagram. My DMs are open. Slide in them. Let's talk some hoops because I love interacting with everybody across the globe who watches us here at Chat Sports. Coming up on today's show, we're going to break down our post-free agency NBA power rankings, taking a look at all 30 teams across the NBA. Who's going to be number one? Who's going to be number two? Stay tuned to find out. But first, we start at the bottom, team number 30, the Detroit Pistons. And we won't spend a lot of time on some of these teams early in the process. Love what the Pistons did in the draft. I like their future with Cade Cunningham. I think he's definitely going to be a player who you can build around with. Cleveland Cavaliers coming in at number 29. I love the young core of Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, Isaac Okoro, as well as Colin Sexton. Wouldn't surprise me if in a year from now, we're talking about the Cavaliers much higher on this list. Orlando Magic. Thought they crushed the draft in the lottery, taking Jalen Suggs as he fell to them after the Raptors elected not to take him, and then they get him a really good wing in Franz Wagner, who I think can be a very solid 3-and-D player. Magic come in at number 28. Rockets might have the most intriguing young core for me, and for them to get all of these players in the top 25 picks is absolutely ridiculous. Jalen Green, Alperen Şengün, Josh Christopher, and Usman Garuba. The Rockets, the arrow for that franchise certainly pointing up, and all of those prospects bring a little bit something to the table. An elite scorer in Green, great defender in Garuba, polished big man who's only a teenager, and Alperen Şengün and Josh Christopher honestly look like Drew Holiday in Summer League so far. Oklahoma City Thunder at number 26. Sam Presti has a bevy of future assets that he can use at his disposal to continue to build up and up and up. Speaking of going up, I love the move to sign Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to that contract extension. I think this guy has gotten better and better each year in his NBA career since coming out of Kentucky, and I think he's certainly a guy you can build your franchise around with as well. So who is the worst team in the NBA? Any of those teams that we just talked about, the worst team in the NBA going into the 2021-2022 season right now, in your opinion? Let us know in the comments section. I hated what the San Antonio Spurs did in NBA free agency, $14 million per year for Doug McDermott, way too much. And when you look at that roster, who's the star player on the Spurs? Josh Primo's been playing pretty well in NBA Summer League, but there isn't a single star on that roster right now. Minnesota Timberwolves, the back half of last year after the All-Star break, they started to get their act together. And them, like some of the other teams that we've talked about, have a pretty solid young core, like Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns. Can D'Angelo Russell be an efficient player for a playoff team? We'll find out this year. Sacramento Kings, Davion Mitchell has been one of the stars so far in Summer League. I think that a trio at the guard spot in your starting five with Davion Mitchell, De'Aaron Fox, and Tyrese Halliburton is going to be able to work, but it's going to be a little bit of an experiment. That's why the Kings are slated at number 23. Toronto Raptors clearly rebuilding right now. I think the pick of Scotty Barnes certainly pointed to that, but the Raptors, one of the best organizations in the sport at developing talent, they're not going to be in the bottom of the barrel too long. Indiana Pacers at 21. With Rick Carlisle taking over as head coach as he goes back to Indiana when he was there for the Malice in the Palace days, that documentary on Netflix, I watched it over the weekend, was fantastic. I want to see how Rick Carlisle brings this team together because there are certainly a couple of pieces on it, Miles Turner, Malcolm Brogdon, Domantas Sabonis, that kind of lend me to believe that the Pacers can get into the playoffs and maybe be competitive in a first-round series, but the NBA's talent pool right now, loaded. Pacers coming in at number 21. NBA fans, if you haven't subscribed to Chat Sports, you got to do so. We were live for the NBA Draft Lottery, the NBA Draft, 5 straight days for NBA free agency. But here's the thing. We push out free NBA content on the daily, and we do it year-round. So hit that red subscribe button down below or go to youtube.com/chatsportstv. Help get Chat Sports to 270,000 subscribers. And if you want more team-specific videos, we now have 6 team channels at Chat Sports as we continue to grow like crazy as a company. Lakers approaching 40,000 subs. Warriors surpassed 20,000 subs a couple weeks ago. Dallas Mavericks, we're back pushing out consistent videos on that channel. We're almost at 15,000 subscribers. And then Celtics, Knicks, and Sixers, all relatively new channels that are growing rapidly. Knicks channel has taken off. 76ers channel, taken off as well. If you're a fan of any of these teams, or you want to keep tabs on any of these squads, during our live show, producer Marshall Green is filtering through those subscription links at the bottom of your screen. Also, those links for you to subscribe to those channels are in the description of this video. To move ahead in these NBA power rankings after NBA free agency, Pelicans coming in at number 20. You have Zion Williamson. I think if they don't make it to the playoffs this year, that's a disaster. Charlotte Hornets. That young backcourt of LaMelo Ball and James Bouknight, it's pretty solid. And the Hornets last year, one of the more surprising teams in the NBA, as they continue to build and become a little bit more experienced, I think they could be a player in the back half of the Eastern Conference standings. Washington Wizards at 18. I think they are a less top-heavy team without Russell Westbrook and a more well-rounded team. They should definitely make it into the playoffs, and because you have one of the best bucket getters in the league in Bradley Beal, you're always a mix to cause some damage in the postseason. Grizzlies at 17. They brought in Rajon Rondo as well as Patrick Beverley. Who knows if those players are going to be on the roster on opening day, but Ja Morant, he's a blossoming superstar. Portland Trailblazers at number 16. You have Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum as of now. Are the Blazers going to trade one of Dame or CJ? Maybe even both? Possibly. But when you have an elite backcourt like that, and I understand they haven't had a ton of postseason success, they did make it to the Western Conference Finals a couple years ago back in 2019. They could do that on the lone thought that Dame and CJ can put the team on their back. Name a team that missed the playoffs last year, but will make it to the playoffs this year. The Chicago Bulls, probably the leaders in the clubhouse for me. If you have another team, get that team in the comments section. We're halfway through these power rankings. Boston Celtics at 15. They can continue to climb up these power rankings because they have two of the best young players in the league in Jason Tatum, who I think right now is a top 10 player, and Jaylen Brown, who's one of the best two-way players in the league. Edging the Celtics, the New York Knicks. What a great rivalry, too, between the Celtics and the Knicks. The Knicks, I love what they did in free agency as well as the draft, and some of these young players in Summer League I think are going to be able to contribute right away. And this is a roster that's honestly like 12, 13 guys deep. Tom Thibodeau is going to have a difficult decision and difficult decisions to make as to who makes that final roster. Chicago Bulls were extremely active in NBA free agency, bringing in three really notable players. Lonzo Ball getting $85 million. DeMar DeRozan over the next couple making around $28 million per year as average annual value. And Alex Caruso is a guard who is going to be able to lock down other opposing guards. I think the Bulls, who disappointed last year after making that trade for Nikola Vucevic, are going to get back into the playoff equation this year. They could surprise a lot of people and be a top 5 team in the East. I have them at 13 because I have some concerns about that defense. Mavericks at 12. Anytime you have Luka Doncic, you are a threat to win a 7-game playoff series against any team. But outside of Luka, I'm not sure there's much star power on this roster. Producer Sam Brown, who's a Mavericks homer, is looking at me as I break down the Mavericks at number 12. He's like, yo, are you kidding me? Let's be honest, Sam. That roster outside of Luka, it's not all that elite. Philadelphia 76ers at number 11 on the precipice of being a top 10 team. I have the Sixers at 11 after being the number 1 seed in the East last year because we're not sure what the hell is going to happen with Ben Simmons. And we're not sure if the Sixers do end up trading Simmons, which I think is inevitable, what the Sixers are going to be able to get back. If the Sixers get back Damian Lillard, they become a top 10 team, no doubt. If they get back just a borderline all-star player for Simmons, because the market is that low, they'll probably continue to stay in the mix in that 7 through 12 range. For all my hoopers out there, if you love talking hoops, hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at Chase_Senior. My DMs are open. I started here at Chat Sports on March 1st. I'm already in my 6th month. I've loved interacting with all of you, and I know a bunch of people out there send me trade ideas and NBA hot takes. Do so right now if you haven't done so already at Chase_Senior. Let's get to the top 10 in these power rankings. Atlanta Hawks, after making that run to the Eastern Conference Finals, are a top 10 team in my opinion. You lock down Trae Young off that rookie max contract extension. You bring back John Collins, who was a restricted free agent. Basically, you have every member of that team coming back for a team that made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Clippers at number 9. They could easily be higher on this list, but Kawhi Leonard isn't going to play for much of next year. As for what the Clippers did in free agency, I thought they were pretty active and pretty successful with what they wanted to do. Signing Kawhi Leonard to that 4-year deal obviously puts them in a position to succeed for several years to come. I like the re-signing of Reggie Jackson as well as Nicholas Batum. They brought in Eric Bledsoe, and they sent away Patrick Beverley as well as Rajon Rondo. Does that make them any better? We'll see. I like the draft selections of Keon Johnson. He's flashed in Summer League, so too is Jason Preston, especially his passing ability. Clippers coming in at number 9. Nuggets just ahead of the Clippers at 8. Jamal Murray is going to come back at some point this season coming off that torn ACL. And if Murray doesn't go down, the Nuggets, one of the better teams in the Western Conference last year. And I think with Murray on the floor, playing with the Joker, who won the MVP last year, the Nuggets realistically and easily could have won the West. Utah Jazz were the number 1 seed in the West last year, went out early because Mike Conley was hobbled. Donovan Mitchell wasn't right because of that ankle injury. I think they're taking a few steps downward. That's why I knocked him down a couple pegs to number 7. Golden State Warriors at number 6. If Klay Thompson comes back and is close to the all-star form that he played at from 2015 to 2019, when he was a 5-time all-star, just an elite marksman from deep and one of the best defenders in the league, that gives you basically a big 3 again with Steph Curry still playing like an MVP player. I think the Warriors are players, if Thompson is healthy, to possibly win an NBA championship once again, which would be that core's 4th. The best team of these 3, let me know and sound off in the comments section. If it's the Nuggets, type DEN. If you think it's the Jazz, type UTA. If it's the Warriors, type GSW. Our top 5, the much anticipated top 5, the Lakers. I love everything that Rob Pelinka and general manager LeBron James did in free agency. Yes, I understand that this roster is older, but it's not like the older players on this roster have a history with a bunch of injuries. I want to see how Russell Westbrook fits with guys like LeBron James and Anthony Davis who aren't elite shooters. I like all of the moves that the Lakers did after that Russell Westbrook trade because they were so bereft of shooters and brought in a lot of shooters to make the roster make a lot more sense. But the notable additions in free agency, I gave the Lakers an A grade. Russell Westbrook averaged a triple-double last year. Carmelo Anthony, 40% three-point shooter last year. So too was Wayne Ellington. Kendrick Nunn can come off the bench and give you a heater and go on a microwave, shooting the ball offensively. Dwight Howard, Malik Monk, Trevor Ariza. Lakers killed it. I just don't think they're one of the top 3 teams yet because they are a little bit older. Miami Heat, also very active in free agency. I like the win now moves that both the Heat and the Lakers have made. Kyle Lowry, yes, he's 35 years old, still playing like an all-star caliber player. But this kind of just reeked of Pat Riley type moves because all of these guys are bulldogs, they're uber competitors, and they're guys who you want to be in a back alley brawl with, especially when you're trying to compete for an NBA championship. Kyle Lowry, PJ Tucker, Markieff Morris, you brought back and re-signed Duncan Robinson as well. This Heat team, in addition to signing Jimmy Butler to the max, completely loaded from top to bottom. Can't slight the Phoenix Suns because they brought back one of the more marquee free agents in Chris Paul, and they were the runner-ups last year to the Milwaukee Bucks. This is a roster that has a wonderful blend of elite young talent with Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, and Mikal Bridges, but also really, really solid veteran pieces. Chris Paul, culture changer. Jay Crowder, good 3-and-D guy. Monty Williams, good coach. James Jones, one of the best front office executives in the entire sport. They'll be a factor to compete for the Larry O.B. Milwaukee Bucks, they got to be at number 2 for me. Not quite the talent of the Brooklyn Nets who come in at number 1. But when you look at these top 5 teams now, as we shake it down, with the Nets coming in at number 1, Bucks at number 2, Suns at 3, Heat at 4, Lakers at 5, I think depending on which order exactly you want to go, the consensus is out there that these are the top 5 teams in the league. If James Harden and Kyrie Irving weren't slowed down by injury last year, I'm not sure there would have been a team in the NBA playoffs that would have stopped and slowed down the Brooklyn Nets. They were so elite offensively last year, which is crazy considering that this big three on your screen right now only played 8 regular season games together. Against the Celtics, I thought the trio was excellent. Against the Bucks, I thought they were really good before Kyrie went down. But any given night, Durant, Harden, Irving, all walking buckets, all capable of going off for 30 points. And what they did in the draft, Day'Ron Sharpe, Cam Thomas, phenomenal. What they did in free agency, bringing in a guy like Patty Mills at $6 million per year over the next 2, very smart moves to pair all of those guys up, young and old, with KD, Kyrie, as well as James Harden. So those are our post-free agency power rankings. My favorite team, as far as winning an NBA title next year, and the best team in my opinion, the Brooklyn Nets. Who do you think the best team in the NBA is going into the 2021-2022 season? Get those votes in the comment section.